foursome of soon-to-be Hall of Famers recognized tonight reached the pinnacle of success with their brilliant play for some of the most entertaining NBA teams of the new millennium. He made a name for himself in 2002 by leading Lincoln High in Dallas to a 40-0 record and the #1 ranking in the nation. Later became part of one of the most celebrated draft classes in NBA history. He would go on to become an 11-time All-Star, an Olympic gold medal winner, and a 2-time champion with the Miami Heat. Elected by the North American Committee and presented his Hall of Fame ring and jacket by Coach Paul Hewitt and class of 1999 Hall of Famer Wayne Embry, Chris Bosh. The only player in NBA history to go undrafted and achieve Hall of Fame status, he was a Division II All-American at Virginia Union who'd become a 4-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year and a 4-time NBA All-Star while leading the league in block shots in 2002 and in rebounds per game twice. Elected by the North American Committee, the centerpiece of the 2004 NBA champion Detroit Pistons is being presented his Hall of Fame ring and jacket by class of 2015 Hall of Famer Dikembe Mutombo. Now from one 4-time Defensive Player of the Year to another, Big Ben Wallace. As a high school phenom at Detroit Country Day School in 1991, he was named the McDonald's All-American Game MVP, Michigan's Mr. Basketball, and the Naismith Prep Player of the Year. As a member of the Fab Five, he'd lead the University of Michigan to 2 Final Four appearances and was a unanimous first-team All-American while helping reshape basketball style. The 1994 NBA Rookie of the Year went on to become a 5-time NBA All-Star. Elected by the North American Committee and presented his Hall of Fame ring and jacket by his father, Macy Weber, Chris Weber. In high school, he was named California's Mr. Basketball. In college, he was a unanimous first-team All-American at the University of Kansas. As a pro, he became a 10-time NBA All-Star with the Boston Celtics and Finals MVP in 2008, leading the franchise to its record 17th NBA title. Believe me, it's all the truth. Elected by the North American Committee and being presented his Hall of Fame ring and jacket by his best friend, Jason Crow, Paul Pierce. Looking good. Congratulations once again to Chris Bosh, Ben Wallace, Chris Weber, and Paul Pierce.
He is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, Paul Pierce. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you. This is an honor. This is a true honor, man. First and foremost, I'm humbled and honored to be here tonight. I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I think I'll be a Hall of Famer. You know, the initial dream as a kid is to make it to the league. I mean, you don't really dream too far, like, I want to be a Hall of Famer. You don't say that as a kid. You know, now to be enshrined in basketball lore is more than I can ever imagine. Coming out of college, I was a first-team All-American, projected #2 pick. And so I like to thank the Clippers, Vancouver, Grizzlies, Denver Nuggets, Toronto Raptors, Golden State Warriors, Dallas Mavericks, Sacramento Kings, Philadelphia 76ers, and Milwaukee Bucks. The 9 teams that passed on me. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for passing on me and adding fuel to my fire. I appreciate that. Doc, I can't even lie, man. We didn't start off on the best footing. I know you wanted to trade me too. I know you did. I know you did. I mean, I was accustomed to doing things my way, didn't like someone coming in telling me what to do. However, when I started to listen to you and understand your criticism as coaching, that's when I became great. So thank you. Also, this one I knew you as a player's coach. You know, I remember coming in to shoot around one time, hungover, and we had a game that morning, and we was running a play. And, you know, the play I was supposed to go through, cut through. And so we run the play, and I go to one knee, and he looked at me, and like, Paul, what you doing? He's like, Paul, come here. I'm like, oh man, you know, I'm kind of covering my breath. I know it's banging. So I kind of stopped short. He was like, Paul, go home and be ready for tonight. Get some rest. And I was like, thanks, coach. And I ran out of there. I'm telling you, I had 30 that night. We won. I was like, players coach. I think that goes without saying, KG, you were the most influential. You know, I apologize to you also. I remember we were kids and we went to Vegas and we jumped out the cab and ran and didn't pay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being a bad influence to a country guy that young. I never apologize, so man. I hope you understand. We didn't have no money at the time, so we were just trying to get the circus. But anyways, I appreciate you, man. I remember Ray Allen said, when I had the 2 girls and a boy, he said, if you ever needed a boy, I could be there for you. I think he got like 4 or 5 boys. I was like, whatever, Ray, whatever. If you ever need a girl, holler at me.
All right. Good evening. Oh, man. You know, first off, I want to start by thanking these 2 gentlemen up here for presenting me this evening. You know, with Ray, he's been a great teammate and a great friend. And best of all, he made the Game 6 shot. So, you know, that's great. And man, you know, Pat Riley, when I first met Pat, I was 19 years old interviewing for the draft. And I remember being so nervous. Even my family members were always starstruck every time they see him. And we've had tremendous experiences together. And in honor of everything, I actually have a gift for you. For some context, when I met Pat during free agency in 2010, he pulled out every trick, you know, and it was quite the performance. And as I was starting to stand up to leave from the meeting, he pulled out one last trick. He took out this velvet bag full of championship rings and dumped them all across the table. And he picked one up, you know, and he looked me dead in my eye and he said, "You give it back to me when we win one together." Now, when I think about it, it was crazy because I hadn't even agreed to sign with Miami. But that's Pat, you know, and we did win a ring together, 2 of them. But I never gave back the one he loaned me because, you know, for whatever reason, I wanted to wait till the right moment. And, you know, I figured this would be a good moment. Of my heroes, and I would put them on walls as my posters. In fact, some of those heroes are here right now. A lot of them are. You know, I'll never be able to describe just how much the game you built means to me, how much it's done for me. But while I'm so grateful all of you are in this building, I'm thinking of the ones as well who are not. In particular, Kobe Bryant. He was such an inspiration for my generation, and I'm sure all of us in this room. So, I'd like to share a lesson I learned from him. It was 2008. The Redeem team was formed. And we were in Vegas for the start of training camp, and we were getting ready for the Olympics in Beijing. We're going to head to Beijing. And I wanted to establish myself as a young leader on the team by waking up bright and early, day one. So the goal was to be the first one at breakfast. So I set my alarm. I make sure I'm up by sunrise. I get out of bed. I put on my gear and I head downstairs. But when I get there, Kobe's already there, with ice packs on his knees, drenched in sweat. Now, it took me a minute to figure it out, but this guy wasn't only awake before me. He had already worked out. He had just played in the finals days earlier. Meanwhile, I'd been off for months and I was still exhausted. What he had done that morning was incomprehensible to me. That dedication he had only days after falling short of an NBA championship. That taught me something I've never forgotten. Legends aren't defined by their successes. They're defined by how they bounce back from their failures. And that's what I hope to communicate to anyone watching this, especially the kids. When you look back on my career, when you visit Springfield and see my plaque, it's going to seem inevitable that I ended up here. And that's how I felt about my heroes growing up. I thought they were automatically destined for greatness. But as I've been reflecting on my career, I've realized the accomplishments were anything but guaranteed. The highs I've experienced, they were only possible by how I bounced back from the lows. From those moments when I wondered if it was worth it, or if I was wasting my time, or if I was good enough. The moments when I feared I would never grow into the person or the player I knew I could become. And one of those moments happened a few years after those Olympics, when I was the one who had just lost a championship in 2011. I never thought that we would get that far and lose. And as soon as the buzzer went off, I just broke down. And unfortunately for me, the cameras caught it. There's even a video of it on YouTube called something like Chris Bosh Cries Like a Little Girl, which, I find offensive. To little girls, I'm sure you could agree. Lauren, I've never seen, Yolanda, I've never seen you cry like that at all. At that moment, I didn't feel like an all-star. I didn't feel like a champion. I felt like I was 11 years old again, crying after losing a game on Saturdays at Biddy Basketball in St. Phillips. And we lost a lot of games. But that's the kind of kid I was. Basketball was everything to me, and I put my soul into it. I would watch all the games I could, college, pros, over 40 leagues, church leagues. Sometimes I go to the library and even look up old stats. I still remember them too. In 1968, Bill Russell averaged more than 19 rebounds as a coach. Spo, you got to pick it up, man. And while we're here, I got to say it. Hey, Chris Webber, we're going into the Hall of Fame with Bill Russell, bro. That's crazy. To me, players like you guys and the ones you paved the way for were superheroes. And I spent every moment trying to follow in your footsteps. I dribbled for hours in my driveway, and it was this like rock, dirt mix. And if your handle wasn't perfect, you'd be chasing the ball all day. And one of those moments happened a few years after those Olympics, when I was the one who had just lost the championship in 2011. I never thought that we would get that far and lose. And as soon as the buzzer went off, I just broke down. And unfortunately for me, the cameras caught it. There's even a video of it on YouTube called something like Chris Bosh Cries Like a Little Girl, which, I find offensive. To little girls, I'm sure you could agree. Lauren, I've never seen, Yolanda, I've never seen you cry like that at all. At that moment, I didn't feel like an all-star. I didn't feel like a champion. I felt like I was 11 years old again, crying after losing a game on Saturdays at Biddy Basketball in St. Phillips. And we lost a lot of games. But that's the kind of kid I was. Basketball was everything to me, and I put my soul into it. I would watch all the games I could, college, pros, over 40 leagues, church leagues. Sometimes I go to the library and even look up old stats. I still remember them too. In 1968, Bill Russell averaged more than 19 rebounds as a coach. Spo, you got to pick it up, man. And while we're here, I got to say it. Hey, Chris Webber, we're going into the Hall of Fame with Bill Russell, bro. That's crazy. To me, players like you guys and the ones you paved the way for were superheroes. And I spent every moment trying to follow in your footsteps. Basketball wasn't what I did, it was who I was. Anything with an NBA logo on it, that was like currency to me. Jordans were the dream, which I knew my parents weren't going to buy. I'd ask for jerseys too, and that wasn't happening either. Till this one day, under the Christmas tree, my preteen prayers were answered. Folded neatly in this little box was a Lakers jersey. Man. And as I'm taking it out, I'm just so excited. I'm like, man, is it Magic? Is it Kareem? Is it Worthy? I look at both sides, and it just said Lakers. No name, no number, just Lakers. Man, but I still felt like magic when I put it on. I even go outside and play a little bit. And I was so proud until I wore it to school. But that didn't take away my love for the game. Every Saturday I watch Inside Stuff with Amir Rashad and go practice the moves I just watched. I once saw this skinny kid dribbling it up the court, 19 years old. Some guy named Kevin Garnett, and nobody could tell me anything after that. I even had a copy on VHS tape of Hoop Dreams, and I'd watch it over and over, obsessively. Did you know Juwan Howard's in that movie? Does anybody know that? Check it out. Still, what I want you to know is that after losing the championship in 2011, I wasn't patting myself on the back for how far I come. I was figuring out how to get even further the next year. Now, I wasn't at the gym at 4 a.m. I was in San Tropez. I had just married the love and light of my life, Adrienne Bosch, who's here today as well. And, we had to rebuild from a tough season. Brunches and boats and beautiful views, that'll do it for you. It's good for the spirit. Because I knew the whole time we were there, as soon as I got back, I was about to work harder than I ever had. And the rest is history. Heat Nation, are you here? I mean, you remember a 27-game winning streak, 4 finals in a row, 11 consecutive All-Star games, and that's if you're a numbers person. Got to have big plays in the finals, back-to-back championships. Not those accomplishments, I know they might seem like they were inevitable too, but I promise you, between each of them, there was a lifetime of work that wasn't seen. Putting in those long days and late nights, fighting that feeling that everything could come crashing down in one moment. And unfortunately for me, it did. When the doctor told me I would have to choose between risking my life every time I stepped on the court or retiring from the game at age 31. You know, after working as hard as I could, the training, the practices, the weight sessions, the bus rides, the film, going back at night to work on my game. After finally making it to the mountaintop, was so much more to do in my mind, so much more to prove. Suddenly it all stopped. By now I don't have to tell you that there were plenty of tears that day, and in the days since. But in going through those crossroads, I eventually came to realize that we all have it in our power to make the most out of every day, despite what happens, to turn setbacks into strengths. Because in a way, that's the lesson I've been learning my whole life. It's what I was talking to Gino about in high school. It's what I learned from Kobe at the Olympics. It's what Adrian reminded me of after that visit to the doctor. And you know what? It's come true. And I'd like to think that all of those tears, from me crying after a pickup game in Hutchins, Texas, at Highland Hills Recreation Center on Saturday, after my dad would pick me up from open gym, the tears on that Laker jersey after the kids made fun of me, the tears on national TV after losing that championship, the tears that came after not being able to play the game anymore. They weren't endings, they were beginnings. They weren't moments that made me want to stop working. They were moments that made me want to work even harder. And when I think about it, they were more than tears. They were the water that made it possible for the seeds of greatness inside me to grow. And they're the reason that that little kid with those thin makeshift posters on the wall is standing in front of his heroes tonight as a member of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
She encouraged us to know our history. She wanted us to familiarize ourselves with some man named Jackie Robinson. She was proud of this man. She spoke of him with certainty and conviction, and one day after class, she asked me to stay after. I was worried. I thought I was in trouble, and thankfully that wasn't the case. She spoke kindly and softly and said, "I know you get teased a lot, but I see something in you. Everyone does. You have to be like Jackie. You have to be strong. You got to pray, and don't let people get to you. They're going to try to get to you. He was special, and you are too." I didn't know why she told me all this. I didn't even play sports at the time. Then later, at the end of our discussion that day, Ms. Stearns pulled out a small picture box and opened it. And she showed me a picture inside and explained to me that the man wearing the baseball hat in the photo, his name was Turkey Stearns. Turkey Stearns was her late husband. He started playing baseball professionally in 1920, retired in 1942. He played for the Detroit Stars and ended up with the Kansas City Monarchs. He's considered one of the greatest baseball players of all time. He batted over 400 3 times, led the Negro Leagues in home runs 7 times. He has 50 more home runs as the #1 hitter than whoever's in second place. To supplement his income, he worked summers in a factory owned by Walter Briggs, owner of the Detroit Tigers, a team that didn't employ blacks. Now, I know this seems like a down or a baseball story, but to me, this is just an example of God's grace in my life. You see, I was being filled with energy of those that have been in the struggle, not just from family and friends, but those in my village. Mrs. Stern saw something in me before I saw it in myself. Her presence and expectations of my life's potential have stayed with me since our conversation in class that day. Not as a burden, but as validation, holding me to a standard. So how could I move forward after having people like that in my life and hearing first-hand accounts of dreams deferred to the past? How could I not think that I must pay it forward or honor those that have paid the way? And so tonight, just a few miles from Boston, how could I not thank the great Bill Russell, Red Auerbach? How could I not thank others? Yes, please clap for them. I'd like to tell you a story about Isaiah Thomas. He was my guardian angel. Only a few family and friends knew this, but my brothers and I were big fans of Isaiah. We would do everything that Isaiah did. I would even, after I got to the league, say hi, Mom, after every interview because he did it. Now you have to flash back. I'm 16 years old, and Zeke calls our house to speak to my parents and ask if he could come over and speak with us. He came over to our little shack on Biltmore, shout out 6 Mile, Evergreen, Finkel, Puritan. He came to the hood because I told him he was coming through. Everyone came out and bothered him. He was just cool, patient, and gracious. After speaking to my parents, Isaiah took me aside. You talked, you were kind. You said you understood what I was going through. You told me don't worry. You explained if I needed anything, you'd be there. Financially, mentally, spiritually. You explained that it's about the long run and I had to stay focused. You told me don't start believing the press. You told me keep doing my thing because we are more than hoopers. Zeke, I remember like it was yesterday. You said we. You gave me confidence. You validated my game through setting your expectation. And finally, you protected me from the vultures. You protected me from the vultures. That's why I never had to take a penny from anyone. You found me. You took time out of your life. You took pressure off of me and you planted a seed. And I've helped so many kids only because of your generosity and what you've shown me. Thank you, Isaiah. I love you. Charles Barkley, I'm honored to have you welcome me into the Hall of Fame. You changed the way the game was played from a power forward position. Personally, you've shown me the way in life more than once. The first time was high school. Rick Mahorn brought you by and I got a chance to meet you. I studied your game, I knew your truth, I knew your attitude, and you complimented me and encouraged me. And for the first time after seeing you, I thought, hey, maybe I could do this if my favorite player says I can.
In my international career, I played for the two countries, Yugoslavia and Croatia, and I had great success with both. I would like to thank my national team coaches, Rusin Halilovic, Svetislav Pešić, Dušan Ivković with Yugoslavia, and with Croatian national team Petar Skansi, Aleksandar Petrović, and Pino Đerđa. Of course, I had opportunity to play with some great players on those national teams. Some of the fellow Hall of Famers like late Dražen Petrović, Dino Rađa, Vlade Divac, but many other great players. At this time, I would like to thank this gentleman here, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, for kicking my butt during the Olympics in Barcelona and then motivating me to work even harder to become an important part of the Chicago Bulls. My sincere gratitude goes to Mr. Jerry Reinsdorf and the late Jerry Krause for insisting on bringing me to the Bulls and believing in me as a player when it wasn't common for non-American players to play in the NBA.